Captain Daho Kim stood at the viewport of the lunar base, his eyes fixed on the blue-green sphere of Earth hanging in the darkness. It was 2045, and humanity had spread its reach to Mars and several moons in the solar system. Still, the sight of home never failed to fill him with a sense of duty. "Captain, we have a problem." Lieutenant Ji-woo Park's voice broke through his thoughts. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel. "What is it, Lieutenant?" Kim turned, noting the worry in her eyes. "Something big just entered our detection range. It's not one of ours." She pointed to the screen where a large red dot moved steadily toward Earth. Kim leaned closer. "How big?" "Massive, sir. At least 2 kilometers long. And it's not slowing down." Within minutes, the command center of the Tajin Defense Force was fully staffed. Soldiers moved with purpose, their faces tense but focused. This was what they had trained for, even if none truly believed this day would come. "Get me a visual," ordered Kim. The main screen flickered to life. Floating against the blackness of space was a ship unlike anything humans had built. Long and sleek, it gleamed with an iridescent glow that seemed to bend the starlight around it. "Is that a shield?" asked engineer Jun Seo Choi, Kim's childhood friend who had been checking the base's systems when the alert sounded. "I think so," Kim said quietly, "and it looks far beyond our technology." The alien vessel slowed as it approached Earth's orbit. Smaller ships, each the size of a human destroyer, detached from the main craft and spread out in a formation that any military officer would recognize. A blockade. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," Park reported. "They want to talk to everyone at once." Kim nodded. "Put it through." The screen changed to show a being that was clearly not human. It had a hard, chitinous face with compound eyes that reflected the light in prismatic patterns. When it spoke, its mandibles clicked together in a rhythm that somehow matched the translated words. "People of Earth, I am Supreme Commander Xal of the Vorax Collective. Your world has been selected for assessment and incorporation into our empire. You should feel honored. We only choose planets with potential." Kim exchanged glances with his officers. This was not the peaceful first contact humanity had hoped for. "We have conquered 17 star systems," the alien continued. "All who resisted have been removed. All who submitted now serve a greater purpose within our collective." "They're threatening us," whispered Park. "But why tell us? Why not just attack?" Kim had been wondering the same thing. They want something, or they enjoy this part. The alien commander spread its 4 upper limbs in what might have been a gesture of magnanimity. "To demonstrate our goodwill, we will allow your leaders 48 Earth hours to prepare for surrender talks. This is generous. Most species receive no warning." "Sir," Park said, her voice low, "I'm detecting energy readings from their ships. They're scanning our military installations, our power grids, everything." Choi leaned forward. "They're assessing our threat level." On screen, Saul continued, "Some choose to resist. This is foolish. Our shields are impenetrable to weapons of primitive species. Your most advanced technology will fail against them." As if to emphasize this point, the shield around the alien mothership pulsed brighter, creating waves of light that rippled across its surface. "We will now demonstrate." With a gesture from Saul, one of the smaller ships fired an energy beam toward an uninhabited area of the Pacific Ocean. The beam struck the water, instantly vaporizing a column of ocean a kilometer wide. Steam billowed upward, visible even from the lunar base. "That was less than 1% of our weapon capacity," Zell stated flatly. "Prepare your leaders. We will speak again in 48 hours." The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Kim was the first to recover. "Get me Earth Command." "Lieutenant Park, I want everything we have on those energy readings. Choi, see if there's any weakness in their approach formation." As his team rushed to follow orders, Kim turned back to the viewport. The alien ships now hung in Earth orbit, their shields shimmering like deadly rainbows. "Sir," Park said quietly beside him, "What if their shields really are impenetrable?" Kim's jaw tightened. "Everything has a weakness, Lieutenant. We just need to find it. And we have 48 hours to do so." 24 hours had passed since the Vorax ultimatum. In New York, world leaders gathered for an emergency United Nations session. The Great Hall buzzed with fear and angry voices. Sergeant Ta-Hyun Lee stood perfectly still against the wall, his eyes constantly scanning the room. As a former Olympic shooter, his steady hands and sharp eyes had earned him a place on the security detail for Earth's most important scientist. Dr. Hae-Nyul Song sat at the center table, her tablet filled with data on the alien ships. She was small in stature but commanded attention when she spoke. "The Vorax ships use energy shields unlike anything we have developed," she explained to the assembly. "From our scans, they appear to absorb or deflect all forms of energy directed at them." The UN Secretary-General leaned forward. "Is there any way to penetrate these shields, Doctor?" Before she could answer, the large screens around the hall lit up with the face of Supreme Commander Xal. "Your time grows short," the alien announced. "To help you make the wise choice of surrender, we will allow you to test your weapons against our shields." Murmurs spread through the hall. Sergeant Lee moved closer to Dr. Song, his hand resting on his holstered 9mm pistol. "Standard issue for security personnel." "A demonstration?" asked the Chinese premier. "Yes." Zal's mandibles clicked. "We will position a small scout ship in your upper atmosphere. You may fire any weapons you choose at it. When they fail, you will understand the futility of resistance." The world leaders exchanged glances. It was clearly a trap, but also an opportunity to gather data. "We accept," said the American president after a brief consultation. 2 hours later, military forces worldwide were on high alert. A small Vorax ship, still larger than the biggest human spacecraft, hovered in position. In a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Sergeant Lee watched the monitors alongside Dr. Song. They had been flown there directly from New York to observe the demonstration with military commanders. "First test. Conventional missiles," announced the general in charge. On the screens, they watched as 5 cruise missiles streaked toward the alien ship. The Vorax vessel didn't move. When the missiles were about to hit, they seemed to slow and then dissolve against a shimmering field around the ship. "No effect," reported a technician. Next, experimental railgun. From a secret base in the Pacific, Earth's most powerful weapon fired. The projectile moved at incredible speed, but when it reached the Vorax ship, it simply vanished in a flash of light. Dr. Song frowned, making notes on her tablet. Final test, directed energy weapons. 3 satellites positioned around Earth fired concentrated energy beams at the scout ship. The shields glowed brighter, but remained intact. Zal's voice filled the command center. "Your primitive weapons are useless against us. As you can see, resistance would only result in your destruction." The alien's face appeared on the main screen. "You have 24 hours remaining before we begin cleansing operations. Your leaders know how to contact us when you are ready to discuss terms of surrender." As the transmission ended, the room fell silent. "So that's it?" asked one of the generals. "Their shields are impenetrable." Dr. Song was still studying the data. "Something's not right," she muttered. The shields responded differently to each weapon. There were fluctuations. Sergeant Lee, who had been watching her work, asked quietly, "What kind of fluctuations?" "Microscopic changes in the energy patterns," she replied. "The shield isn't blocking everything the same way. It's adjusting to each type of attack." Lee considered this. If it adjusts, then it must have limits. Nothing can defend against everything. Dr. Song looked up at him, a small spark of hope in her eyes. "Exactly. They're calibrating against what they expect us to use." She turned to the generals. "I need access to a secure lab immediately, and I need every bit of data we have on these shields." One of the generals nodded. "You'll have whatever you need, Doctor. But make it quick. We're running out of time." As they prepared to leave, Lee checked his pistol out of habit. Dr. Song noticed the motion. "Sergeant, have you ever fired that weapon at an energy field?" she asked suddenly. Lee looked confused. "No, doctor. Why would I?" "Because sometimes the simplest solutions are the ones we overlook," she said. "And I have a theory I need to test." In an underground lab 50 meters below the surface, Dr. Hae-Neul Song stared at screens filled with data. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. Only 18 hours remained before the Vorax deadline. "Play it again," she said, pointing to the footage of missiles hitting the alien shield. Sergeant Ta-Hyun Lee tapped the controls. On screen, the missiles dissolved against the shimmering barrier. "Slow it down. Frame by frame," Dr. Song instructed. The video slowed to a crawl. Dr. Song leaned closer. "There. Stop it right there." The image froze. To most eyes, it showed nothing special, just a missile touching the shield before disappearing. "Do you see it?" she asked Lee. He squinted. "See what?" "The shield ripples differently at the exact point of impact." She traced a finger over the screen. "It's not one shield. It's layers. And each layer responds to different types of energy." Lee nodded slowly. "So they have specific defenses for specific weapons." "Exactly." She pulled up more data. "The Vorax have conquered 17 star systems. They've faced many different weapons. But..." She was interrupted by the lab door sliding open. Captain Da-Ho Kim entered with Engineer Jun Seo Choi. "Dr. Song, we got your message," said Kim. "You found something." She nodded. "Captain, I believe the Vorax shields are calibrated against what they consider advanced weapons. They've optimized their defenses based on what they've encountered before, which might not include everything Earth has to offer," Kim said, understanding. Engineer Choi set a small metal case on the table. "We brought what you asked for. But I don't understand how it helps." Dr. Song opened the case, revealing pieces of metal that looked like broken machine parts. "This is from a Vorax probe that crashed near the lunar base," she explained. "It's the only piece of their technology we have. We need to test my theory." Sergeant Lee looked at the alien material. "You think older weapons might work where new ones fail?" "Not just older," Dr. Song clarified. "Weapons with specific physical properties. The Vorax shields work on quantum frequency alignment. They're designed to counter energy weapons and high-velocity projectiles, but not simpler kinetic weapons." Lee asked. "That's what we need to find out." An hour later, they had set up a testing range in a sealed chamber. The piece of Vorax technology was mounted on a stand at one end. First, they tested a laser. The alien material deflected it completely. Next, they fired a small railgun. Again, the material remained undamaged. "Now for the test that matters," said Dr. Song. Sergeant Lee removed his 9mm pistol from its holster and loaded it with standard ammunition. "You really think this will work?" he asked. "Only one way to find out," she replied. Lee took his position, aimed carefully, and fired. The gunshot echoed in the chamber. For a moment, no one moved. Then they rushed to examine the target. The bullet had pierced the alien material, leaving a clean hole. "It worked," whispered Dr. Song, eyes wide with disbelief. Kim stared at the damage. "How is this possible?" "The 9mm bullet travels at a specific velocity and has a particular mass," explained Dr. Song. "It creates a kinetic impact that resonates at a frequency their shields aren't designed to stop." "They never expected us to use such basic weapons," said Choi. "Why would an advanced civilization still use simple bullets?" "Because we're human," said Lee simply. "We keep what works." Captain Kim picked up the damaged alien material. "So our most effective weapon against their perfect shields is one of our oldest and simplest." "It appears so," confirmed Dr. Song. "We need to tell Earth Command immediately," said Kim. He turned to Lee. "How much 9mm ammunition does the military have in stock?" "Not enough for a war against aliens," Lee replied. Kim's face hardened with determination. Then we'd better start making more. Lots more. As they gathered their evidence to present to the military leadership, Dr. Song looked at the hole in the alien material. Sometimes the simplest solution is the one your enemy never sees coming, she said. And we have 16 hours to turn it into a plan that saves Earth, added Kim. 12 hours remaining, announced the digital clock on the wall of the war room. Military leaders from around the world sat around a large table. Captain Daho Kim and Dr. Hae Nul Song stood before them, explaining their discovery. So you're telling us, said General Park, head of South Korean forces, that our best chance against these aliens is to shoot them with pistols. Not just pistols, Dr. Song clarified. Any firearm with the right ballistic properties. Our tests show 9mm rounds work perfectly, but we need to test other calibers too. The American general leaned forward. This sounds like science fiction. So did alien invasions until yesterday, replied Kim. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. We need to be sure, said the Russian commander. One test isn't enough. That's why we need a larger test, Dr. Song agreed, with different weapons and against an actual shield, not just material. The Chinese general frowned. And how do we get close enough to an alien ship to shoot at it with handguns? Engineer Jun Seo Choi, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. I might have an idea about that. Within an hour, they had set up a new testing facility in a larger underground chamber. Sergeant Ta Hyun Lee arranged different firearms on a table, pistols, rifles, and even an old revolver. I'm still not sure about this, said a scientist from the weapons division. If you're wrong, then we're no worse off than before, finished Lee. He picked up his 9mm pistol. Let's start with what we know works. At the far end of the room stood a clear container holding the piece of Vorax technology. Engineers had managed to activate its shielding system, creating a small version of the alien defense. Shields are stable, reported Choi from behind a computer. Firing may commence. Lee aimed and fired. The bullet passed through the shield and hit the alien material, just as before. Confirmed, said Dr. Song, checking readings. Next weapon. One by one, they tested different firearms. Some bullets bounced off the shield. Others passed through with varying degrees of effectiveness. It's as I suspected, said Dr. Song after an hour of testing. The shield has specific frequency gaps. Some rounds hit these gaps perfectly. Which ones work best? Asked Captain Kim. Dr. Song showed him the data. 9mm is most effective. Some .45 caliber rounds work well too. Rifle rounds are too fast. The shield has time to adapt. So slower bullets work better? Asked Lee, surprised. Not too slow, she clarified. There's a sweet spot, a perfect combination of mass and velocity that the shields can't properly phase shift against. As they discussed the results, a young corporal rushed into the room. Captain Kim, the Vorax are calling again. Everyone hurried to the main command center. On the large screen, Supreme Commander Xal appeared, his compound eyes gleaming. Your time is running short, humans, he announced. Have you prepared your surrender? The UN Secretary-General faced the alien. We are still considering our options. Saul made a sound that might have been laughter. There are no options, only submission or destruction. Dr. Song studied the alien commander closely. Around his body, she could see a faint shimmer, a personal shield. We would like more time to discuss, said the Secretary-General. No more time, replied Xal. In fact, I grow impatient. You now have 6 hours, not 12. When we next speak, you will kneel before the collective or face cleansing. The transmission ended abruptly. They're getting ready to attack, said Kim. We need a plan now. Lee checked his weapon. We know which bullets work, but how do we get close enough to use them? All eyes turned to Engineer Choi. I've been analyzing their ship designs, he said. There's a pattern to their docking ports. If we could get a small team aboard. He paused, looking uncertain. Go on, urged Kim. We could use one of our stealth shuttles. With some modifications, it might pass as a Vorax maintenance vessel. Captain Kim nodded slowly. A small team might slip through their defenses. It's a suicide mission, said one of the generals. Maybe, Kim acknowledged. But it's also our only chance. He turned to Lee. Sergeant, how good are you with that 9mm? Lee's expression was grim but determined. Best shooter in the TDF, sir. Good, said Kim, because you just volunteered for the most important mission in human history. 5 hours remained until the Vorax deadline. In a hangar deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, a team worked frantically on a small space shuttle. Will these modifications hold? Captain Da-Ho Kim asked, watching as engineer Jun Seo Choi attached strange-looking panels to the shuttle's hull. They should, Choi replied. I copied the design from the Vorax probe we recovered. It will make us look like one of their maintenance vessels, at least from a distance. Nearby, Sergeant Ta Hyun Lee was training a small group of soldiers, including Corporal Min Soo Kang, a young sharpshooter with steady hands. Remember, Lee instructed, aim for center mass. Their personal shields have the same weakness as their ship shields. A 9mm round will pass right through. Kang nodded, his expression serious. What about their armor underneath? From what we've seen, they rely completely on their shields, Lee explained. Their actual body protection is minimal. Dr. Hae Nyul Song entered the hangar carrying several cases of ammunition. These are special rounds, she said, handing them to Lee. We've adjusted the weight and composition to maximize effectiveness against their shields. Lieutenant Ji Woo Park, who had been monitoring Vorax communications from the lunar base, appeared on a large screen. Captain Kim, I have new information, she reported. The Vorax are preparing for what they call a standard harvesting operation. They plan to take Earth's resources and leave the planet uninhabitable. Kim's jaw tightened. That confirms our worst fears. There's more, Park continued. I've identified their command ship. It's the largest one, positioned over the Pacific. If we can disable it, their fleet might fall into disarray. Then that's our target, Kim decided. He turned to address the small strike team. There were 12 of them, the only 12 who would get a chance to save Earth. Our mission is simple but nearly impossible, he began. We will approach the Vorax command ship using Choi's modified shuttle. Once aboard, we find our way to their control center and disable their weapon systems. How do we get inside? Asked Kang. Choi pointed to a diagram of the alien vessel. They have maintenance ports here, and here. Small craft regularly dock for repairs. We'll mimic their approach pattern and dock at this port, which appears to be closest to their central systems. Once inside, we stay together, Kim continued. Sergeant Lee and Corporal Kang will take point. Our weapons are simple -9mm pistols and compact submachine guns. Nothing fancy, nothing that will bounce off their shields. Dr. Song stepped forward. Remember, their technology is designed to counter advanced threats. They never expected to fight someone using primitive weapons. What if they adapt? Asked one of the soldiers. They might, she acknowledged. But their shields operate on fundamental principles. Changing those would require rebuilding their entire defense system. We have a window of opportunity before they can adjust. Kim checked the time. 4 hours remaining. We launch in 30 minutes. As the team made final preparations, Lee approached Kim privately. Captain, realistically, what are our chances? Kim looked at the modified shuttle, then at the small team preparing for battle. 1 in 1,000, he admitted, but sometimes that's all you need. Lee nodded. It's been an honor serving with you, sir, no matter what happens. The honor is mine, Sergeant. On the other side of the hangar, Dr. Song was giving Choi some last-minute advice. If you can access their systems, download everything you can, she said, handing him a special device. Even if we don't survive, this data could help Earth understand their technology. Choi tucked the device into his pocket. We'll survive, he promised. I still owe you dinner from that bet last year. She smiled despite the gravity of the situation. "I'll hold you to that." Captain Kim called everyone together for one final briefing. "In 3 hours, the Voraks expect us to surrender," he said. "Instead, we're going to show them the humans don't give up that easily. We may be less advanced, but we're more adaptable." He looked each team member in the eye. "Today, we fight not just for Earth, but for every species these invaders have conquered or destroyed. Today, we show them that sometimes the simplest solution is the one they never see coming." The team boarded the shuttle. As the hangar doors above them began to open, Kim took his place in the pilot's seat. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready," they responded in unison. The shuttle's engines fired up, and Earth's last hope rose toward the stars. The modified shuttle approached the massive Voraks command ship. From his pilot's seat, Captain Da-ho Kim watched the alien vessel grow larger in the view screen. Its shield shimmered like oil on water. "Status?" Kim asked. "Transponder is active," replied Engineer Choi. "We're broadcasting Voraks maintenance codes." In the passenger compartment, Sergeant Lee checked his 9mm pistol one final time. Beside him, Corporal Kang and the other soldiers sat in tense silence, each holding similar weapons. 1 hour until their deadline. Dr. Song reminded them from her communication link on Earth. "You need to move fast once you're inside." The shuttle continued its approach. Around Earth, the Voraks fleet had positioned ships above major cities. Their message was clear: surrender or be destroyed. "We're being scanned," Choi announced suddenly. "Hold steady." Everyone held their breath as the alien sensors swept over their vessel. "Incoming transmission," Choi said. A harsh voice spoke in translated English. "Maintenance vessel. Identify your purpose." Choi activated the response system they had prepared. Using pieces of Voraks communications they had intercepted, he had created a basic reply message in the alien's own language. "Routine shield calibration." The automated message responded. "Priority 3. Several tense seconds passed. "Proceed to docking port 7, came the reply. The team exchanged looks of disbelief. It had worked. "Docking in 30 seconds, Kim announced. Everyone ready. The shuttle approached a small opening in the massive ship. As they drew closer, the shimmering shield parted, allowing them entry into a brightly lit docking bay. "Remember the plan," Kim said as the shuttle locked into place. "We head for the central control systems. No detours, no hesitation." With a hiss, the shuttle door opened. The team moved quickly into the alien corridor, weapons ready. The inside of the Voraks ship was strange. Walls that seemed to pulse with energy and floors made of a material that felt slightly soft underfoot. "This way," Choi whispered, following a small device that tracked energy signatures. "The main systems should be 3 levels up." They moved through the corridors, encountering no aliens at first. Then, as they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a Voraks worker. The alien was tall, nearly 2 meters in height, with a chitnous exoskeleton and multiple limbs. Its compound eyes widened in surprise at the sight of humans on its ship. Before it could react, Sergeant Lee raised his pistol and fired. The 9mm bullet passed straight through the alien's personal shield and struck its body. The Voraks fell with a high-pitched screech. "It worked," Kang whispered, staring at the fallen alien. "Move," ordered Kim. "They'll know we're here now." They ran through the corridors, following Choi's directions. Alarms began to sound, a pulsing noise that hurt human ears. At an intersection, they encountered 3 more Voraks. These were soldiers, carrying weapons that glowed with energy. "Down!" shouted Lee as one fired. An energy blast hit the wall where they had been standing, melting the material instantly. Lee and Kang both fired their pistols. The bullets passed through the alien shields, dropping 2 of them. The third fired again, missing narrowly. Corporal Kang took careful aim and fired. His shot hit the alien directly in one of its compound eyes. "Keep moving," Kim urged. "We're close." They reached a large door that pulsed with energy. Choi connected his device to a panel beside it. "This is it. Their control center," he said. "Give me a minute to bypass the lock." "We may not have a minute," replied Kim as sounds of approaching Vorax echoed down the corridor. Lee and half the team took up defensive positions. The rest covered Choi as he worked. "Almost there," Choi muttered. "Their system is complex, but it follows patterns." The first group of Vorax soldiers appeared at the end of the corridor. They fired their energy weapons, forcing the humans to take cover. "Any time now, Choi," Lee called as he fired back. "Got it," Choi announced as the door slid open. The team backed into the control center, firing as they went. Inside was a vast chamber filled with glowing panels and displays, and at its center stood Supreme Commander Xal, surrounded by Vorax officers. "Humans," Xal said, his voice filled with shock. "How did you get aboard my ship?" Captain Kim stepped forward, his 9mm pistol aimed directly at the alien commander. "We came to deliver Earth's answer to your ultimatum," he said. Xal's compound eyes narrowed. "And what answer is that?" "This," said Kim, and he pulled the trigger. Captain Kim's bullet passed through Xal's personal shield as if it wasn't there. The alien commander staggered backward, green fluid leaking from a wound in his upper torso. "Impossible," Xal gasped. "Our shields are perfect." "Not against everything," Kim replied. Chaos erupted in the control center. The Vorax officers reached for their weapons, but Sergeant Lee and Corporal Kang were faster. Their 9mm rounds found targets, dropping 3 aliens before they could return fire. "Secure the controls," Kim ordered as his team spread out. Engineer Choi rushed to the main console. "I need time to understand their systems." "You've got 2 minutes," Kim replied, taking cover as energy blasts filled the room. On Earth, Lieutenant Ji-Woo Park watched her communication screens with growing excitement. "Captain Kim's team has breached the command ship," she reported to the military leaders gathered in the war room. "Broadcast the news to all forces," ordered General Park. "Tell them to prepare conventional firearms for close-quarter combat. The Vorax shields are vulnerable to 9mm rounds." Throughout Earth's military bases, soldiers who had been preparing for defeat suddenly found new hope. Armories were opened, and old-fashioned pistols and submachine guns were distributed. In the Vorax command center, Engineer Choi worked frantically at the alien console. "I think I can access their fleet communications," he called out. "Do it," Kim replied while firing at incoming Vorax reinforcements. Choi's fingers danced over the strange controls. "Broadcasting now on all Vorax frequencies." Captain Kim stepped up to the communication device. "Attention all Earth forces. This is Captain Daho Kim. The Vorax shields are vulnerable to conventional firearms. I repeat, their shields cannot stop bullets from standard pistols and similar weapons. Attack their ships now." Across the globe, humanity launched its counterattack. Small fighter jets approached Vorax ships, pilots firing traditional machine guns instead of missiles. Police forces armed with service pistols joined military units. Even civilians with hunting rifles joined the fight. In Seoul, a police officer named Officer Yun fired his service pistol at a small Vorax scout ship that had landed in the city center. The bullets penetrated the ship's shield, damaging critical systems. The scout ship crashed into an empty building. Similar scenes played out across the world as humanity realized their oldest weapons were effective against the advanced alien technology. Back on the command ship, Sergeant Lee guarded the entrance to the control room as more Vorax troops approached. "How much longer, Choi?" he shouted over the gunfire. "Almost there," Choi replied. "I'm accessing their weapon systems now." Suddenly, the ship rocked violently. Alarms blared throughout the vessel. "What was that?" Kim demanded. Choi grinned. "Earth forces are attacking the ship. They're using fighter jets equipped with regular machine guns." On one of the monitors, they could see small Earth aircraft swarming around the massive Vorax vessels, where energy weapons and missiles had failed before. Simple bullets were now causing damage. Supreme Commander Xal, wounded but still alive, watched in disbelief. How? How did you know? Dr. Song, still connected via communication link, answered, your shields are designed to stop energy weapons and high-velocity projectiles. You never considered that a species might still use simple kinetic weapons. Primitive technology. Xal spat the words. Sometimes the old ways work best, Kim replied. Corporal Kang, who had been monitoring the ship's sensors, called out, Captain, more Earth forces are joining the attack. The Vorax fleet is taking heavy damage. Choi looked up from the console. I've accessed their weapon controls. I can disable their main weapons from here. Do it, ordered Kim. As Choi worked, Xal staggered to his feet. This changes nothing, he hissed. The collective has conquered 17 systems. We will adapt. We will return. Kim kept his pistol trained on the alien commander. Then we'll be waiting. Outside, Earth's counterattack gained momentum. Lieutenant Park coordinated the assault from Lunar Command, directing forces to key weak points on the Vorax ships that Dr. Song had identified. The tide is turning, she reported. The Vorax are falling back. For the first time since the aliens had appeared, humanity dared to hope. Their most basic weapons had proven effective against the most advanced shields in the galaxy. As Captain Kim looked out at Earth through the command ship's viewports, he allowed himself a small smile. The battle was far from over, but they had found a way to fight back. Sometimes, the simplest solution was the most powerful of all. Ship systems failing, announced a mechanical voice throughout the Vorax command center. Shield integrity compromised. Captain Daho Kim and his team had been fighting for nearly an hour. The control room was damaged from energy weapon fire, but they held their position. 3 of their team had been wounded, but all were still alive. Supreme Commander Xal, now surrounded by dead or injured officers, watched from across the room. Green fluid still leaked from his wound, but he remained conscious, his compound eyes fixed on the humans. You've lost, Xal, Kim called out. Order your fleet to withdraw. The alien commander's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. You understand nothing of the collective, human. We do not retreat. We adapt, we overcome, or we die. Engineer Choi, who had been working at the main console, looked up in alarm. Captain, he's activated something. Energy readings are spiking throughout the ship. On a nearby monitor, they could see Vorax ships around the world beginning to ascend, moving higher into Earth's atmosphere. What are they doing? Asked Sergeant Lee. Dr. Song's voice came through their communication link. Captain, our sensors show the Vorax fleet is gathering energy. Massive amounts of it. Xal's voice was cold. If we cannot have this world, no one will. Our ships are now charging their cleansing protocol. When it activates, your atmosphere will burn away. Your oceans will boil. Nothing will survive. He's not bluffing, Choi confirmed, reading the alien displays. Energy levels are building across the fleet. They're preparing for some kind of coordinated attack. How long do we have? Kim demanded. 5 minutes, maybe less, Choi replied. Kim aimed his pistol at Xal. Shut it down. Now. The alien commander's eyes glittered. You cannot stop it. The command has been given. It cannot be reversed except by me. And I will never do so. Then we'll make you. Kim moved toward Xal, but the alien raised one of his 4 arms. Come closer and I activate it immediately, Xal warned, revealing a small device in his hand. Your primitive weapons may penetrate our shields, but your primitive minds cannot comprehend our technology. Corporal Kang had been quietly moving along the wall of the control room. Now he caught Kim's eye and nodded slightly. Kim kept Xal's attention. Why? Why destroy a planet you came to conquer? Because the collective cannot allow knowledge of our weakness to spread, Xal replied. If we cannot have your world, we will make an example of it. As Xal spoke, Kang raised his pistol, taking careful aim. You underestimated us from the beginning, Kim said. You thought your technology made you invincible. A minor miscalculation, Saul replied. One that will be corrected in future conquests. There's something else you miscalculated, Kim said. What is that? Sal asked. Humans are very good at shooting things. Before Exal could react, Corporal Kang fired. His bullet traveled across the room, passed through Xal's shield, and struck the alien's hand. The control device clattered to the floor. Lee rushed forward, grabbing the device before Exal could recover it. Disable it, Kim ordered. Troy took the device and connected it to his equipment. It's locked to his genetic signature. We can't deactivate it directly. Then what options do we have? Kim asked. We need him to stop it, Choi said, pointing at the wounded Xal. Kim approached the alien commander. Call off the attack, or we finish what we started. Xal's mandibles clicked again. Kill me if you wish. The cleansing will still occur. It is our way. Captain, Choi called urgently. I might have another option. The fleet ships are linked. They're all receiving commands from this vessel. Can you override it? Not directly, Choi said, but I might be able to send a contradictory signal, something that would confuse their systems. Do it, Kim ordered. As Choi worked frantically, Xal watched with growing concern. What is he doing? The alien demanded. Finding a way to beat you, Kim replied. Again. Choi's fingers flew over the controls. I think, yes, I'm sending emergency shutdown codes to all systems. On the monitors, they could see the energy buildups in the Vorax ships beginning to fluctuate. No. Xal tried to rise but fell back, weakened by his wound. Too late, said Kim. It's over. Almost got it, Choi announced. Just a few more seconds. Suddenly, Xal pulled a small weapon from his armor and aimed it at Choi. Look out, shouted Lee. Sergeant Lee fired his pistol in one smooth motion. The bullet struck Saul directly between his compound eyes. The alien commander collapsed, dead before he hit the floor. Energy levels dropping across the fleet, Choi reported. The cleansing protocol is aborting. 1 month after the Vorax invasion, Captain Da-Ho Kim stood at the window of the newly established International Space Defense Headquarters in Seoul. The city had recovered remarkably well. There were still damaged buildings being repaired, but life had largely returned to normal. Captain, they're ready for you, said Lieutenant Ji-Woo Park, now his official communications officer. Kim nodded and followed her to the conference room, where Earth's leaders had gathered. Also present were representatives from 3 other alien species, former victims of the Vorax who had arrived after hearing of Earth's victory. Captain Kim greeted the UN Secretary-General. Please share your report on the captured Vorax technology. Kim stepped to the podium. Thank you. With the help of Dr. Hae Nyul Song and engineer Jun Seo Choi, we've made significant progress understanding Vorax shields. He activated a display showing detailed schematics. Their shield technology is indeed advanced, but as we discovered, it had a critical blind spot. They optimized their defenses against what they considered advanced weapons: energy beams, high-velocity projectiles, and plasma-based systems. Dr. Song stood up to continue. The Vorax never expected to face simple kinetic weapons like our firearms. In their conquest of 17 systems, they encountered civilizations that had abandoned such primitive technology once they developed energy weapons. Their mistake, added Sergeant Ta Hyun Lee from his seat, was assuming that advancement means replacement rather than addition. The representatives from the other alien species nodded in understanding. One of them, a tall blue-skinned being, spoke through a translator. The Vorax did the same to our worlds. By the time they came, we had no weapons that could penetrate their shields. We have much to learn from Earth. The Chinese premier addressed Kim. What about the remaining Vorax ships? Could they still pose a threat? Most of the fleet retreated after we disabled their command ship, Kim replied. The 5 vessels we captured have provided valuable technology. We believe they will report back to their collective, but it will take them years to return to their home territory. And when they do return, asked the Russian president. Engineer Choi stood up. They will find us ready. We're already developing new shield systems that don't share the same vulnerability. But we're also maintaining our conventional weapons. We won't make their mistake of abandoning proven technology. In another part of the building, Corporal Min Soo Kang was training a mixed group of human and alien soldiers. They practiced with both advanced energy weapons and simple firearms. Remember, he told them, never rely on just one type of technology. That was the Vorax's mistake. Back in the conference room, the delegates discussed the formation of an interstellar defense alliance. The aliens who had suffered under Vorax rule were eager to join forces with the humans who had defeated their oppressors. As the meeting concluded, Dr. Song approached Kim with a tablet. "Captain, we've decoded more of the Vorax database. There's something you should see." Kim looked at the screen, his expression growing serious. "Are you certain about this?" She nodded. The Vorax themselves were running from something, a threat from another galaxy that they called the Darkness. That's why they were so aggressive about conquering and harvesting planets. They were building up resources. "So there's something worse than the Vorax out there?" Kim asked quietly. "Possibly. But now we have allies, and we know not to underestimate simpler solutions." Later that evening, Kim met with his core team. Dr. Song, Engineer Choi, Lieutenant Park, Sergeant Lee, and Corporal Kang, on the roof of the headquarters building. They shared a quiet drink as the sun set over Seoul. "To the humble 9mm, toasted Lee, raising his glass. The bullet that saved Earth." They laughed and clinked glasses. "It's strange to think about," said Park. "The Vorax conquered 17 systems with their perfect shields, only to be defeated by one of our oldest weapons." "The best technology isn't always the newest," Choi replied. "Sometimes it's the one that works when you need it most." As darkness fell, they could see the lights of the captured Vorax ships being studied at a nearby research facility. Earth was already adapting the alien technology for its own use. "What happens next?" asked Kang. Kim looked up at the stars, now carrying both promise and potential threat. "We prepare, we learn. We remember that sometimes the simplest solution is the most powerful. And we make sure that if anything else comes from those stars thinking Earth is an easy target, they'll get a proper welcome," finished Lee with a smile.